All right, welcome back, everybody, and or just welcome to those who are just joining us. We are ready for our 10th session of the day, OpenRefine for Collections Data, presented by Karen Kohn from Temple University. Karen Kohn is Collections Analysis Librarian at Temple University in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and the author of Collection Evaluation in Academic Libraries, a practical guide for librarians. Since 2020, she has been teaching an Introduction to Collection Analysis course via Library Juice Academy. She's published articles in College and Research Libraries, Journal of Academic Librarianship, Journal of Documentation and Collection Management. She has an MLS from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign and an MA in Sociology from Temple University. All right, whenever you're ready, Karen, feel free to share your screen and go right ahead.
Okay. Can you see me and hear me okay?
Everything looks and sounds good to me.
Thanks. Okay, I told the SUNY people I'm going to ignore the chat. So I see numbers there, but I'll look at them after. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about OpenRefine, which is a software tool that I thought would be of interest for this conference because it's not designed for libraries, but I use it regularly, and there are other people in my institution that I know use it in different ways. So this presentation is going to be a bit different from the other ones because I'm not talking about a specific project that I did. This is a tool that I use as a piece of a lot of different tasks that I do. So I'm going to talk about what it can do and ways that I use it. And you can see from the title of my presentation and my job title that I work with collections data. And so my examples are collections focused. I did ask my coworkers who I know use this tool what they use it for. And so I have some examples from a digital projects librarian, and I'll mention those, but I'm not as familiar with what he does. Not really at all familiar with what he does. So what it is, it's a tool for data cleanup. And people who work with data, I think people have alluded to this morning, like data is always going to be messy. I mean, I think catalogers are like the most detail-oriented people, but they're working with data that comes from publishers, and our records sometimes don't follow rules of good data structure. Like there's a lot of different ISBNs in one field. Publisher names appear a lot of different ways. There's Wiley and there's John Wiley and there's John Wiley and Sons, and those are really all the same. And so certainly when you're trying to work with data, there's a lot of cleanup that you need to do. And this is a tool that's meant specifically for that. It is an open source download. So if you're interested after this presentation, you can just go download it. What it does, it was a little confusing to me at first. It sets up a mini server on your computer. And so it runs in your browser, and I will show you this. It looks like you're looking at a web page, but it's not really cloud-based. It's actually running from the server that's hosted on your computer. And people who have paid more attention to me than to data security really tout this as a benefit. That you're not uploading anything to the cloud; it's still stored on your computer. So in terms of what it can do, and this is definitely not an exhaustive list. It can join multi-valued. It can join multi-valued cells or split things, which I'll show you. Like what I said about the ISBNs, when there's a lot of them in one field, put them up. You can filter in a lot of different ways. There's you can filter for, is this a number? Is this not a number? You can filter for all cells that have an X in them. Filter out the blanks. Filter out the non-blanks. A lot of filtering options. It's really easy to trim white space, splitting one column into two columns. My coworker says he has done find and replace using if conditions, which sounds neat. I have not done that. Clustering, I'm going to show you. That's finding those publisher names and merging them into, or other things, and merging them into a standardized value. Combining data from multiple tables, API calls. It also allows you to save your steps as a sequence. So if there's something that you do repeatedly, I've never used this feature myself, but there's a process you run through repeatedly and it's the same steps every time, you can save the steps themselves and then apply them to a different file. If there's a file you get every month, then you always do the same steps. So that's another benefit. So again, this is a non-exhaustive list. I will say at this point, and I think this will be even clearer when you see my screenshots, that it's not really meant for typing. Like a lot of people use it when they use Excel, spreadsheets in Excel, they just type, here's one line and here's what goes on the next line. And OpenRefine, theoretically you can do that, but that's not what it's for. It's really meant for batch edits. It's meant for cleaning data, not entering the data. So it is usually something that's a piece of a project. You don't do the whole project in OpenRefine. I actually started using it partly because it can handle such large tables. I often work with really long Excel spreadsheets, and sometimes like I'll put in a help desk ticket and they'll say, this file's just too big for Excel. There's nothing wrong with your computer. It's just Excel can't handle a file that's hundreds of thousands of rows. And OpenRefine can do that, and it can be quick. It's much quicker. So I use it even if I'm trying to make a simple change, but the file's really large. I sometimes use OpenRefine for that. It's great that it's easy to reverse your actions. I will show that. It saves automatically, as many things now save automatically, but that's still good. And like many tools, it can be used at a basic or an advanced level. If you wanted to do just a lot of find and replace, I guess you could do that, but there's much more you can do as well. So here's what it looks like. And I meant to say earlier, this is not a live demo. It's really going to be a bunch of screenshots. It's not, I don't have the time to do a full lesson, like an instruction lesson, and I didn't want to worry about anything going wrong if I tried to do it live. So it's a lot of screenshots to give you an idea of what it looks like. It is, I think, pretty user friendly, and just hopefully make it feel appealing and possible. So here's the first screenshot, and this is just the screen for uploading a file. You can see on the left of the screen it says Open Project. So if I wanted to go back and open a file I had worked with before, it would just be there. It would just be saved there. But usually I'm starting from something new, and so I would hit the browse button, look at the file and locate the file. And as I said, it's in the browser window. You can see at the top there's like where a URL would be. It has the IP address of that local server. And it shows a lot of different file types that are supported, which I also put on their own side. I bolded the Excel because that's what I use the most often, Excel and CSV. Okay, and then here's my test file. So as I said, I'm not describing a specific project that I've done, but what I did was I thought about what features I want to show you, what are the different functions that I use frequently, and then I came up with a hypothetical scenario that would allow me to show you all of the functions that I use the most often. So I uploaded this file, and I'll tell you in a minute what I'm trying to do with it. But it's not very large. It's 1,085 rows, and as I said, I sometimes work with files that are over 100,000. So in uploading this to OpenRefine, I haven't made any changes to my original file. I'm going to do a bunch of changes in OpenRefine and then export it. And actually on this screenshot, you can see in the top right, there's an export button. Then I export it and I end up with a new file. So there's sort of this proliferation of files that I sometimes find a little bit annoying, but it's really a good thing for like the integrity of the data. If I were working with other people, I think they would probably appreciate that I hadn't made any changes to the initial file. The file that I uploaded is still saved wherever it was, and I haven't changed it. And then I'm going to make a new file, and I usually save it and just tag refined on the end because it's the refined. I also want to point out here this undo redo tab, which is on the left. And right now it says 0 out of 0 because I haven't done anything. So there's nothing to undo, but I'll show you another screenshot later when there are things that can be undone. So what this file is, the hypothetical scenario here is that I have a list of ebooks that are in my library that we have in various electronic collections. And I'm imagining that I want to see which of these are assigned in courses. Often I'm really going the other way, like I'm looking at what's assigned in courses and checking to see if we have it. But in this scenario where we're starting with a list of ebooks, and I also want there to be one line per book showing what courses is this assigned in and what collections do we have. So in order to get to that goal, there's a few things that are issues or tasks that need to be done. One is that the Bib records repeat multiple times, and I'm going to back up now. So I don't know. I'm assuming a lot of you use ALMA. Maybe not everyone, but this MMS ID is the bibliographic record ID in ALMA, and these repeat. You can see it. Lines 3 and 4, A Field Guide to Climate Anxiety. These are the same book, and they're on the same Bib record. And it's listed twice because it's in two different electronic collections. They're both from EBSCO, but it's in EBSCO Academic and EBSCO Public Library. So it shows up twice. And most of the time, I really would like these to be listed on one line that just tells me both collections are. Publisher names are not standardized because they never are. I think they're one of the messiest parts of working with collections data. And I want to compare the ISBNs on this list with the ISBNs on the course listings. And in order to do that, I'm going to need to separate them so they're all on separate lines and pull in data from another file. So there's no real reason in this example that we would need to standardize the publisher names, but I wanted to show that because it's a great feature. So on this slide, I actually already made one change. You might notice the MMS ID I've now moved over to the left, and you'll see a little bit later why I did that. But what I have here is just rows 9 and 10 of the report, which is the same book, and it's in. I always forget what my iLibrary is now. It doesn't really exist anymore, but this ebook is in. It was in my iLibrary and it was in eBook Central DBA. So it's listed twice. So what I'm going to do is I would go to the top of this column right here. You can't, in the screenshot, you can't see the top of it. But at the top of the column called Electronic Collection, I would go to the top of that column and click on the little down arrow, then Edit Cells, Join Multi-Valued Cells. And it has joined them, so they're both now on line 9. And now on line 10, there's no electronic collection listed. So I would use those great filtering features that I just mentioned, and I would filter out any row that has that now has nothing in the electronic collection column. So we're now down to 787 rows. We started with 1,085. There's now 787. And now we're going to standardize the publisher names. So almost anywhere in this document, you could probably find pretty easily find an example where the same publisher shows up written in 2 different ways. Right? The MIT Press, MIT Press. So I would go to the top of this column, the publisher column, and Edit Cells, Cluster and Edit. And Cluster and Edit is so cool. So this is what comes up. So it finds for me what it thinks are matches. And in this case, they actually look like they're all correct. And so I would click Select All at the bottom left. You do need to review them, but I would click Select All, and then you can change what you want the new cell value to be. So this was an interesting example because the top line is merging those to say Rutledge. And then on the third line, it wanted the new value to be Rutledge, Taylor, and Francis Group, which makes sense. But I would like that to also say Rutledge to make things even more simplified. So I changed that. And I would click on the bottom right, Merge Selected, and Recluster. You see these drop downs at the top? These are different algorithms for matching. And I don't know what they are, but I always try all the algorithms, because each one will find something that the others didn't find. So here's another algorithm called Metaphone 3. And this one's kind of overzealous. You see, it found some things that were not matches, like University Press of Mississippi and University Press of Kentucky. So I did have to review this pretty carefully and check off, which ones do I really want to merge. So you can see I've checked off some of the boxes here and not all. And then I would click Merge Selected. So the next The next task is working with those ISBNs. And this is going to be the reverse of what I did with the electronic collections, because I joined those onto the same line. The ISBNs are going to split them. So click on that column and I select split multi-valued cells. And now they're split. And this is why I moved the MMS ID over to the left. So sometimes you might not get things in the right order. Like you do a few steps and then you realize, oh, whoops, I should have moved that column over to the left beforehand. And then I'll show you that the great undo feature at the very end. I have a screenshot of that. So because this is on the left, it becomes like the unique key for each record. And you can see at the top, there's the option of show as rows or show as records. And it's showing them as records. And you can tell that it actually understands that even though it split all of these ISBNs, that they're still part of the original top level record. So you can tell from like the numbering and the color coding. You know, record 1 is made up of all these grayish rows. Even though they're on separate rows, it understands that they all share the information that's in the top one. And so it was helpful to have that MMS ID on the left because then it serves as, you know, it works well as a unique identifier. So comparing the ISBNs to the textbook list is going to involve this function called cell cross. What cell cross does is it cross-references the cells in one file with those in another file. In other words, it takes a value from the first file and looks up corresponding information from another. It works the same as VLOOKUP in Excel, and I use VLOOKUP every day, and so I have memorized, but I really, cell cross, I always need to look it up. So I included the link for you, because this is how I learned to do cell cross was from this tutorial, so I always go back to that webpage. And now that I understand it, I just need to look up the formula, and I can copy and paste it. Okay, so here's what it looks like. I went to the ISBN column, and then I clicked Add a column based on this column. And then a window pops up where I type in this formula. And what the formula is doing is cell.cross, and then it says go to the file called 2022 Fall Barnes & Noble and find the column EAN13, which is where the ISBNs are, and return the corresponding course ID. You know, return the values from the column called course ID. At the bottom of this pop-up window, it shows a preview of what's going to happen when this formula runs, which is really useful because then you can tell if you've actually typed it correctly or not. So in this case, I can see that there is going to be a value here on line 2. It's Urban Ed 5501. The formula is correct. And there it is. I've made a new column called course, and in it, it has the course ID. This is the last of the major steps. I have to do a little bit more cleanup. So what I would do is go back and join these ISBNs that I had split, join them so they're back on one row again, and also make sure any course IDs were back up on the top row. So I'd go back to joining, and then remove those extra rows. After I had done the joining, I'd have some rows with blank stuff in them, and then I'd export it to Excel. So remember, I said that you end up with this proliferation of files. So you would end up with a new Excel file or a CSV. So here's what it looks like. I couldn't figure out why it's not wrapping the ISBNs, and so the screenshot is a little weird looking, but you can see that, like, here's Organizing Schools for Improvement, Lessons from Chicago, and it's used in the course, Urban Ed 5501. Here's a theater book, Directing in Musical Theater, and it's used in theater 5134. So good to know that the data not only looks right, but it makes sense. So we can't see over on the right, but it should have the electronic collections all on one line. You know, for each of these books, it should say in one cell, which are all the electronic collections in it. And then I would export it. We're back to the rows view instead of the records view, but I think it should be the same in this case because I've cleaned it to a point where there really is only one line, one row for each book. So, and over to the left a bit, there's this undo redo panel. So now there are 23 steps because that's what I took, you know, in making all these screenshots. And if I wanted to go back, like I was saying, I initially started joining the electronic collection names, and then I realized, oh, whoops, what I really need to do is move the MMS ID over to the left, and then sort by it, so I can make sure that if the same bib record appears multiple times, that they're sorted together. So I would then just do the undo, backup, do that step, and then redo. And you can back, way up. I could go up all the way back to step 2 and click. You just click on it and it undoes everything back up to that step. So I think that the interface is like pretty user friendly, but I also can't really imagine that you could just jump in and try it. It seems to me like something where I found it helpful to have some manuals and some tutorials. And so I've included some links here. There's the OpenRefine official documentation, this data carpentry course. I think I used this to start, and then I used this book, Verborg and DeWild. At the bottom is a tutorial for APIs, and I used it, and I was able to use it and successfully write an API query. I haven't done it in practical terms. Like I haven't had a project where I needed to do that. It was just something I was trying to learn how. So I can confirm that I used this tutorial and I found it, it was clear enough for me. But if you don't know what APIs are, if it's not something you've had to use, you probably need to start a little further back in learning what they are and why you might want to use them. But I did want to give that link just because I didn't have time to include it in the presentation. Okay, so now I'll look at what's in the Q&A.
All right, thank you very much for that. And if there's anyone else who has any questions, just put them right in that Q&A.
And should I just answer them or wait for you to read them?
I'll read a question out loud and then you can answer and we can go through like that. The first question is, with OpenRefine, does it tend to conk out after 10,000 records? I run into that problem with my inventory reports after 10,000 records, and I'm seeking a better tool when I need to look at my inventory reports.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, that's one of the reasons that I use it. So in preparing for this presentation, I went back and looked at the history of just what were all the files that I have opened and worked with in OpenRefine, just to remind me of what are some of the things I've done with it. And there was one file that was maybe 145,000 rows, and I couldn't do anything with it in Excel. Like I would even trying to filter, it was like so slow. And I uploaded it to OpenRefine, and I don't think I was doing anything complicated. I think I just couldn't use it in Excel. So it definitely can handle more than 10,000 records.
Okay. Next question. How do you get the course ISBN listing?
Oh, it's funny. We get it from the bookstore, and I know a lot of libraries have that as like their dream. They want some way to do it. For some reason, we have an AUL who has a good relationship with the bookstore, and he emails them every semester, and they send it to us. So that's how I get it.
Great. Next question. Does it matter what order you merge rows back?
I don't quite understand the question. Like, do I do that before doing something else or after, or does it matter what order the rows themselves are in? Do you mean like what in the sequence of steps? Yes.
Yes.
As long as you haven't resorted for some reason. I mean, I think that if you had sorted differently or you had filtered something out, you'd want to be careful. Like often I filter something out and I basically just want it gone. But there's other times where I filter something out temporarily and then I want to add it back in. So you would want to make sure that you had all the rows and that they were sorted correctly. There's this funny thing where you sort and then you have to click on reorder permanently. I don't really understand why, but you have to make sure that that they're sorted correctly and then you click on reorder permanently before you merge.
Okay. Next question. Can/would/should you export back to MARC for re-upload to an ILS?
I don't really work with MARC records. Can you export back to MARC? I mean, you can upload MARC, so I would assume you could export. I don't know. I would have to go look at the software. I may be able to answer that in the chat when I'm done presenting, because I can just go look at it and see, but I don't want to do that right now while I'm sharing my screen.
Okay, great. So people can keep their eyes on the chat, or if anyone in the chat right now currently
Yeah, maybe
that
someone else
works
can
with that, they could answer that as well.
Okay.
All right. Next question. Is OpenRefine software you have to download to use, or does it live online?
You do have to download it. So it really confused me at first, because it looks like it's online, but it isn't, because you download the software, and then whenever you want to run it, you have to click on this executable file on your computer, and it runs, and it opens in your browser, but it's not really online. It's just using the browser, but it's really running on your computer.
Okay. If anyone has any more questions, we have a few more minutes, so feel free to add them in the Q&A.
And yeah, someone's talking about Java. I have had issues with Java, actually, like where I don't remember what the issue was. Sometimes I upgrade to a new version and it doesn't work with Java.
And someone just posted a link in the chat for working with larger files to address that from earlier.
Oh, everyone has had issues with Java.
All right, does anyone have any more questions? If so, put them in the Q&A. We'll give it another minute or so. While people are possibly thinking of questions, I'll just mention again that everything has been recorded today, and that will be shared and publicly available along with the slide decks. So keep your eyes peeled in your email inbox for that, because if you registered for the event, it'll be sent to that email. And it looks like that is it as far as questions. So Karen, I'd like to thank you one more time for this presentation. I think a lot of people will find OpenRefine to be a really useful tool, and this was a great presentation talking about what it can be used for.
Thank you.